Hello, everybody! If it's Wednesday, it's Warhammer, and that means it's time for another episode of Warhammer Weekly. Joining me, as always, is Tom, and it's just Tom this week. Sorry, I gotta get Tom situated here. There we go.
Sorry, folks. It's just me.
It's just you. Yeah, I have a feeling the funniest thing just screwed up our stream, but I have no way to prove that. So we'll just say it did. I think it had to do with a time zone thing. As you can probably tell, oh, it said like two mics are picking me up. Oh, great. That's what I was afraid was going to happen. Hold on. One moment.
Okay, folks. It's okay. Don't worry about it. Vince is an idiot, but we're back up.
All right.
And hopefully he can. Oh, there we go.
Is that okay? So everybody who is in the chat, tell me if that is now better. Can you hear me now?
It's fine.
There you go.
It's all just fine.
That's fine. I asked you, Tom, did it sound like two mics? I asked him beforehand because I was like, I'm looking at these settings and it looks like something's weird. Hopefully now.
Nah, as I said, it's fine.
Okay, well, hopefully you can still hear me. There we go, fixed. Yep. Okay. Whew. All right, folks, we're back. Here we go. Yeah, okay, so I'm on the road this week, as you can tell from this wonderful setup we've got, but we're still here. As always, we're going to continue bringing you that C quality content every Wednesday. We get an A for consistency and a C for quality, and that averages out to a good B.
Hey, you set the expectations super low,
right?
And when you deliver well, when you over deliver, it's all good.
Exactly. So this is we're doing an early show today because I have some stuff I've got to take care of tonight. I am over in a more European time zone, so this is actually early evening for me.
And I'm driving to Florida and with all of my kids and family in the car, and I don't think you want to do that show.
No.
That's all I'm saying.
God, no. No. I could spend the next hour saying the word no, and it would barely capture my actual feelings on the thing. But at any rate. All right, excellent. Looks like most people have migrated over, so that's wonderful. So today we're going to be discussing endless spells, and we're going to be revisiting them in light of some potential changes coming both with the current world, in the current meta, and also, of course, because of what Cities of Sigmar is bringing us. Cities of Sigmar is, of course, bringing us not just a unique ability to have all of the endless spells cast as though they are in their
appropriate realm,
which is amazing. Which completely changes the evaluation of every endless spell. But also, it brings us the City of Hallowheart, which has some interesting abilities to power these things out. Now, how good that is, well, we'll talk about it when we get there. That probably somewhat relies on an FAQ. But first off, we start with a little bit.
Yes, and what I would say is that this is relevant for you because you will likely see endless spells on the table more, and so a lot of those things, like Burning Head, you may want to know what it does.
Sure. Can we also state that it's a very real possibility that Tzeentch will get their book before the end of the year, and already people are playing around with Tzeentch endless spell spam lists, and I'm guessing that when the new Tzeentch book comes out, they're going to be pretty good casters. Shh. Don't tell anybody, but those stupid chickens are pretty good at magic. So, needless to say, we're very likely going to be in a world here where there's going to be a lot of endless spells on the table, right?
Much to Vince's chagrin.
Well, not piloted by me. The army you're going to see me pilot looks a lot more like what Ben Johnson, I think, is piloting right now on Warhammer TV with 9 steam tanks, which is the greatest news in the world. I knew steam tanks became battle line.
Okay, well, let's just jump into
the
news.
News. Here you go. Yeah. News number 1. Steam tanks aren't just battle line and a behemoth when you have a steam tank commander. They just become battle line, meaning they lose the behemoth keyword. Amazing. Hence, you can run 9 steam tanks. 9. That's exactly 2,000 points, folks.
9 steam tanks.
9.
It's so amazing.
That's fantastic. It's all my dreams are coming true with this book. It's like every day I find a new reason to love both of these books. It's a great time.
And you don't even have to. And you don't even have to have anything else.
No,
Like truly, you can just have 9 steam tanks.
that's your army. That's it. It's 100%. Yeah, yeah, yeah. If you have the commander, they lose behemoth and become battle line. So hence the behemoth restriction goes away. That's incredible. And of course, Ben has one of his steam tanks modeled with the little balloon floaty
Yep.
things. Which, by the way,
Yep.
that's one of the news things we should talk about. Tom, do you have that article handy
Yep.
you could share with people?
Which article?
The community article that just came out today. I can bring
I
it up.
do.
Okay.
It was going to be my pick of the week, but
Well, then we'll get into news and we'll share that in a moment. Just bring it up and let's do
okay.
news.
Yep.
So let's start with that.
Okay. Yeah. So
we had a rumor engine. It was a dumb filigreed hammer. It doesn't mean anything. Next.
Right. Well, it means that like dwarves may be back on the table. A lot of people were like challenging and being like, it's too filigree, it's too elfy to be a dwarf hammer. No, go look at the Longbeard captain's hammer. It has filigree on it. That's all swirly and very similar. So it's very likely could be a dwarfy hammer for those that were challenging the dwarfiness of that hammer. That's all I'm saying.
Sure.
So,
okay.
Yep.
I think it's a who knows what it is. I don't care. It's exactly one of those things that I truly hate because it doesn't look like anything. Right? It just it could be a million things. A filigreed hammer could be literally any model from any game, AOS 40K or any sub faction of therein, right?
Right. You're saying it doesn't actually fuel rumors.
No,
and that's fine.
Exactly. There's nothing to discuss about it. It's a filigreed hammer. We can spend the next 2 hours going round and round and seat that thing into literally any of their worlds in almost any army. It's probably not a Tyranid thing. There you go. Okay, got it. But like, but whatever.
Sure.
Tom, could it be an angel elf hammer?
Yep.
Sure. Could it be a demon elf hammer?
Yep.
Could it be a new dwarf release in like Underworld Season 4 hammer?
Yep.
Sure. You want to keep going? This is fun, right? This is how rumors work. No. This is dumb. Show me something that is something, darn it. Okay. There you go. That's my thoughts on the rumor engine. However, a much more interesting rumor popped up that you brought to my attention earlier today, Tom.
Oh, yeah. So the packing slips.
This is what I'm dealing with, folks. This is what I'm dealing with.
I was like, what rumor did I share with you? Oh, yeah, I remember now. The packing slips. An image was floating around, and then I want to thank Doom of Doom and Darkness for digging a little bit deeper into like customs forms. And he came up with this image that I'm going to share with you all. I just don't like this new format. I'm just going to say it. Get that out there. Okay, here you go. Here's the customs form that he was able to dig up. And you see this War Games Factory company that GW is clearly using to make some of their stuff.
Yeah, this is where their stuff out of China comes from, which is like basically only the terrain. All the models get made there in Nottingham, but all of the outsourced like big terrain stuff, like the faction terrain or like Azerite ruins, anything like that gets mass produced in sort of a different quality plastic. I'm not saying it's better or worse. I'm just saying it's a different plastic than what you get out of the models. That's all made out by these folks.
And what's significant about this is we see their history, right, of shipping. We see the Sigmarite dais. We see the Beastgrave scenery, which I don't know that we know anything about.
I think it's just it's the little pieces for Beastgrave.
Oh yeah. That set they got shipped. And then the Shattered Temple, which was the Wargrave, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And then something else that doesn't matter.
Imperialis Aeronautica stuff.
Oh yeah, there you go. And then up here we see the Ogre Maw Tribe's Great Maw Pot, which is their rumored terrain piece that has just recently shipped out.
Tom, I love how even though you're not getting your Caribbean ogres, you are getting the big stew pot. By the way, as a side answer for what this means, I've seen this question come up. I think it came up on one of Doom's Doomcast recently. Uh, is that somebody had said, "Do you think the butcher is going to keep that cauldron attached?" No,
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 that's the
obviously
point.
not. They're going to make it just a butcher model, like it's supposed to be. They're not going to have no, like
Yeah,
no. I
we're
don't know what
actually
else to
just gonna have
say.
a terrain piece with this.
Right. The big pot will be a terrain thing. You're not going to have a weird ogre hauling around a pot behind him anymore, which is always like the silliest thing. Um,
But
and
you are going to have a barbecue,
sure, but now you'll have the barbecue in the center.
which
Um,
was one of my semi calls, right? Like
yeah,
when we were joking
you had
around
said
at
a
the
big
beginning of the year
barbecue
as
pit,
to
but yeah, it's again. I know you're close on that part. You missed the whole theme of the army, but I'll
because
give you that.
right, like it kept the standard theme. But no, we talked about halflings and ogres
Mm-hmm.
because around the cooking theme.
Yeah, yeah,
With the terrain piece, it's the big barbecue pot.
of course.
And we got that, so that's exciting. So
Yeah,
I
I
like that.
mean
Um,
I think it's awesome, and obviously what it'll probably do is pretty reasonable. Like
but
when
we
when ogres
go ahead.
stand around the mall pot, it'll do stuff like heal them and buff them and stuff like that. It'll do much the same the traditional butcher with the pot used to do. So like if a butcher's near one of the big pot, he can like
Yep.
buff a unit by throwing meat at them or heal them and stuff like that. It'll like the functions write themselves. You know what I'm saying? So there you go.
Yep. Yep. But we also, the other significant thing is that we received the endless spells, the OCR Bone Reaper. Their endless spells are on the way, as are their scenery.
Sure.
Dun dun dun.
Which I mean, did we
And if you look
really
at the
have a
dates on
question at
these,
all there?
August 1st.
Like, did we really expect these
No,
guys
no,
not to have this stuff?
but it's confirmation. It has
Sure.
nothing to do with expectation. It has everything to do with confirmation.
Fair enough.
And if you'll look, the dating, like we got the Beast Grave stuff like the second week of September. Is that right?
Yeah, that sounds right. Sure. Let's say
Second week of
yes.
September is when
So
we
well,
got
sure.
Beast Grave.
Second or third. Yeah.
Okay. Um, so we had a 6-week lead time on their shipping here.
Yeah.
Which puts this stuff at the earliest at the end of October. So the earliest we'll see this is the end of October, most likely an early November release. Like if you're just functioning on shipping like lead times. Because if you'll look at this was early April, and remember we got the Sigmarite stuff at the end of May.
Yeah.
So
Sure.
there's consistency there.
Yep.
So just something to think about.
Yeah, which kind of lines up and makes sense. Like, I think we all figured that the Maw Tribe stuff would probably, and my guess is you'll actually kind of see this split up. Like, I think the Maw Tribe stuff will come at the end of October on pre order for actual pickup in November, would be my guess. And the Bone Reapers themselves will be like middle in November, in between the beginning of the month and the Sisters release. They'd want to have them out by then so they can actually get picked up for Christmas, right? Like the
Right.
key is they don't want to
Right.
delay anything too late into November because then it the shopping season for Christmas for most people actually ends around Thanksgiving. Like the week after Thanksgiving is kind of the end of the generic shopping season. I know that sounds weird to like most people, but if you look at like the sales data, that stuff like this tends to be bought mainly in November for Christmas. So that's how the company wants to make sure everything's available, right?
Yep.
So yeah,
And then we know Tzeentch is coming this year. We just don't know where. Well, we know that Tzeentch may pre-order this year based on the rumor.
yeah. It could be one of those things that crosses over. Like, didn't Gits do that where we basically got it right at Christmas and then it actually became available like in the new year because they did like
Yeah.
that little advent calendar of Gits stuff, right?
Yep. Like
be the same
the
thing.
12 days of
12 days of Gits.
12 days of Gits. So yeah, that's that news. We had tons of leaks this time around, this week from Cities of Sigmar stuff. That was a big deal. Points got out, all the reviews are out on the books. So just all the everything, right?
Yeah, all the men who read books read books. to us.
Yep.
So that was nice. It's like the men who stare at goats instead of it's the men who read books.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, so I mean it's yeah. Yeah. It is what it is.
There was a lot of, and we're going to talk about a little of that rules because it's going to inform some of our discussion during this show. But
Yeah.
we're not going to go into detail on them today because I am going to wait until we're going to wait until the books are in our hands. Tom and I have like assembled most of the rules and points and stuff, and we're very excited. Tom's already been building 52 lists. I've been just my chat history with Tom is just list. What do you think of this? What about this? List. How about what if I change this? List. That's my entire chat history with Tom for the past
last 2 days.
Week. Yeah. So we'll get
that's happening. Yeah, that's happening, and it's fun, and we like it.
Yeah. So we will review them once the books are publicly released, and Tom and I have had a chance to go through them in toto and actually think of them, like think through them. Because I don't just want to be, no offense, I'm glad men who read books read their books, but we're interested in doing a little more than that. What we're going to try to do is bring you like lists and thoughts and synergies as per usual. So it'll be in the weeks afterward.
And I will say this, like this book is massive. And when I say massive, like I don't think people fully understand the weight of how significant this book is.
Cities, it's beyond. It's unreasonable.
Yeah, like it is the like.
Here's a simple way to say it, Tom. It's basically tied with all the high Warscroll armies for Warscrolls. Like it has almost as much as Stormcast or Legions or Skaven, any of the armies that have a high number of Warscrolls. It's hitting in that same range. Okay.
Yep.
As far as like just raw number of Warscrolls, which I would count as basically like 40 to 60 is that very high range of Warscrolls, right? Where you have, where most importantly, you have many units that end up being very similar in function. And so you now need to think about what's doing what in the best case, right? Like you've got greatswords and executioners and, you know, right? It makes me really glad. Like here's an uncontroversial here's a very potentially controversial hot take. I'm super glad they killed as many Warscrolls as they did. Okay.
You can shut your mouth, but I understand what you're saying.
Because the dark world of the opposite of that is that we literally just have a bunch of duplicative bad scrolls.
Yeah.
And we already see it with people going like, why is the greatsword better than this thing? Or why is this thing not good? They're all the same thing. They're just a bunch of dudes wielding two-handed weapons, right? That happen to be a different race and slightly different armor or something like that. And like if they had to deal with all those other duplicates as well, and you had 7 different types of basic archer and 7 different types of basic swordsman and so on and so forth, that didn't have a lot of unique role, it would have just become like, well, one of these is good and the rest are not.
Yep. And now, I mean, that's kind of where we're at already. Like, I look at executioners and I'm like, nah.
Sure. And it still happens some, right? But at least I like that I think they kept about the right amount of divergence. I know that's a tough pill to swallow because the reality is if you're a person who had a bunch of dwarven warriors, right? Or whatever, you know, they're all longbeards now. And that's...
Or the shooters, Glade Guard.
Sure, if you had a bunch of Glade Guard. Or human archers.
Yeah, I mean,
Like you can pick any of these, right? I get it. That's a tough pill to swallow. And my answer is, you know, that sucks. Like I'm not trying to downplay that it sucks. It does. It super sucks for you. No disagreement. Please don't take me that way. And there are some that like you're right. Like somebody Wade in the comments just mentioned that like the Way Watcher had no duplicate and he'll be missed. I agree. There were not like that's not true across the board. There were some of those scrolls that were unique and will be missed. The Way Watcher is actually a really good example. But like if you had warriors, they're just longbeards now, and that's because that's your dwarven infantry, so they're just longbeards. Cool, just make your warriors longbeards. If you had human archers, they can become shadow warriors. Slap a cloak on there, boom. Now they're the human version of shadow warriors. You know, and you can play with these conversions and stuff.
It's nonsensical to me that we got the Order of Azir, like that we didn't get like witch hunters and warrior priests. Like I don't like that was one change, for example, that I just don't understand.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things we're going to want to unpack on our Cities of Sigmar show when we eventually get to it. Is like, why? We'll keep that kid handy. That'll be a good segment to talk through of like, could this have just stayed? And like the warrior priest, or even like just the new Excelsior war priest who has his own clan pack. Like, why didn't that guy come in? You know, I still have questions. So don't get me wrong. I'm not saying like, oh, every one of those choices was exactly correct. They were absolutely right in every scroll they cut. Because no, I do disagree with some of them. But I think like when you look at the duplicative infantry and stuff like that, that's where the choices would have just become outrageous. Because not only do you have that huge number of war scrolls just to do that, right? But then you have 7 very different armies in here, right? And like the cities do end up acting very differently, but because they super differently,
like because the incentive structures that they've set up, which is great design.
Yes, and because you can use any of the troops in any of the cities, you've got to think outside the box sometimes, right? Like the city might be telling you, like you might look at Greywater and go, well, that's where my steam tank should go, and I'm going to tell you, no. Your steam tanks should be hiding in Tempest Eye or something like that. That's going to give you better benefits, right?
Right.
And like, so you've got to sort of...
For me, like the big one for me was like the dwarves. Like everybody wanted to do dwarves in Greywater Fastness, and it's like no, I think Tempest Eye with their +1 to attack spell and mobility probably the better bet.
Yeah, exactly. Or like, and then the fact that Tempest Eye can have all of KO, the fact that Living City can have all, Sylvaneth, and they're not allies, right?
Right.
There are some limits, but you can have like, in like, Tempest Eye is a great example, because you could have 3/4 of your army not Living City. Or sorry, not Tempest Eye, not cities. You could have a quarter of the army cities, a quarter of the army Stormcast, a quarter of the army KO, and a quarter of the army allies.
I built that list already. It's awesome.
Like, it's madness, right? Like, that is such an insane thing to contemplate what that allows. By the way, when KO 2.0 comes out next year, theoretically, Tempest Eye is going to pop off even harder. Let me just say that right now. Like, that city is, by now, Tempest Eye, that stock is going to be rising. So
it'll be interesting to see like where it ends with KO, because we just don't know how everything else is going to change, and I think that's my big question. But we'll get to that.
Sure,
like we'll talk about that when we talk about Tempest Eye.
Yeah. And I don't want to. This isn't pre-cities talk, but yes, just to round that out, like Cinderfall who's obviously, as we all know, a very large fan of the Scourge Privateers, said the Privateers go in Tempest Eye, not Anvil Guard. The run and shoot is fantastic. I agree. As is, by the way, the +1 to wound bubble. That's pretty good too.
Yeah.
So like, but whatever. We'll get to it when we get there. It's funny how different the cities feel sometimes. Like, I also like. I don't hate. You know what I don't hate, Tom?
What's that?
I don't hate Luminarchs hiding out in the Living City. Because you remember that trick I told you about earlier with the bridge? Why bridge?
Let's just ambush.
Just ambush with my 3 Luminarchs.
You didn't know how sneaky those horse-drawn carriages are.
Oh, they're sneaky.
Sneaky.
Very sneaky. Yeah. They will show up and laser beam you to death.
Almost as sneaky as steam tanks.
Almost. Yeah. Steam tanks, well known for stealth. They airdrop in. Anyway. All right. So, yes, I do like the Luminarchs and steam tanks in the Living City. So the point is that this is an incredibly varied book with a lot of potential. It's going to take us hours to get through. So we'll get there. But anyway, that's for later. Let's go to
this is actually also spawned, by the way, a really interesting conversation among TOs as to how they, because of how different they are, as to how these books should be like recorded, especially for stats, like LLV stats. Because there was a discussion and a push potentially to break these out into their cities. But if that were to happen, then like there's arguments now for doing that with all of the factions.
Yeah, sure.
And if that were to be the case, then like it puts a greater burden on TOs. And so, like when I say that this book is significant, it's significant for a lot of ways, not the least of which, like it's potentially changing the very way that we're recording stats.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
Um,
Absolutely. And by the way, I support that if every TO in the world signs on for it. It's the onus is completely on them.
Right.
Because I
Right.
only have to write like Slanesh, and then in the second box I have to write invaders, and I'm
Right.
done, right? And so like
Right.
yeah, but I would love to see LLV stats have that second layer down because obviously the stats would look way different. I mean, it would be a wonderful piece of data because it wouldn't be like Daughters of Cain are the boogeymen. No, Hagnar
Hagnar.
is the
Yeah.
boogeyman. You go look at like the Calibron, Kraith, Drachy, and Eth win rates. You're going to see a very different story, right? And so on and so forth.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, FEC would be fascinating because you'd see like a big spike for Gristlegore and then slightly less probably for Blister Skin, and then like Morden and Untyped would be down below that. Still all good,
Right.
but you know, it would be fascinating. But it's a lot of extra work and data capture for the TOs, and so if they're all on board, I would love it. It's no skin off my nose, but that's up to them. So
Totally agree.
all right, pick of the week, Tom. You got that website ready? I've given you all this time.
Yep. Nope, it's already up.
Awesome. So they
They released an article today.
Yes, sorry, I was just reading the comments. They released an article today that was all about the conversions, and let me just say, this is what I want to see. Okay.
Yep.
Perfect. Yeah, we can see it, Tom. That's great. I want to see this so bad. I want to see people take their cities armies. Like some of people will already have this stuff, and that's fine, and no issue. You know, use your legacy stuff, no big deal. But like, if you're starting a new army or adding to your army, man, I want to see people get into it and really start converting stuff like this, right? Like, I think this would just be amazing. Like, you look down these forces, and they're so characterful. And like, use the idea of like, what does a living city steam tank look like? Versus a, you know what I mean? Like that's just, or whatever. You know, I'm picking that because it's just a thing that I love. But anyway, yeah, scroll us through this, buddy.
Yeah, so we have Chris Peach's Army of Hallow Guild. And they were a lot of his kind of standard stuff. We've seen a lot of this before in Chris's army, but it's always just beautiful to see. And I love his interpretation. Like, so the Tempest Blades, which are monastic greatswords. And so he's using like Eternal Guard almost completely unedited, like unconverted.
Well, he's using the Eternal Guard heads with the big Waywatcher Guardian swords to and
well,
then he's
with the Ranger bodies. Those are Ranger.
Oh yeah.
Those are the like. So all he's done is done a head swap from within the same kit.
Yeah.
And added like a little symbol, and he's saying these are great swords, monastic great swords. I love it. Like I love the kit bashing, and I hope that this becomes like standard, even if small changes like this, like they go with something like that. It's fantastic. Then Ben Johnson's Anvil Guard, which has a special place in Vince's heart. All the tanks, all the time. So you see some of his standard battle line tanks, and then that's right, folks.
Yeah. Thermal Rider Cloak tank.
You want to know what a Thermal Rider Cloak tank looks like? It looks like this, with the engines on top and the little cloaks hanging off the side.
Mm-hmm. It's great.
It's so good. It's so good. So kudos to Ben. I think Vince was already planning on this conversion. So great job, Ben.
Because I have a frigate, just that I had gotten a while ago, and I wanted to use it to make a new steam tank. Yep.
So great job beating Vince to the punch, Ben.
Curses.
And then also for his healing old reliable, his auto healing steam tank, he went with a bunch of Endrin riggers floating around repairing it, which I thought was a genius way to do this as well. It's really quite humorous. So, yeah. So Ben has a great army, and then Ricky Smith's The City of Midnight is fantastic. The conversions on this are just striking. He just did a great job with a lot of these. A lot of really interesting conversions. I like, you could just feel the grime and like the dark like character of this city.
Yeah, I think he's using one of the Necromunda gang dudes there.
Yep.
That's where those bodies come from.
Yep. Those are great. And then like his heroes are super pop off because it has a very like AOS 28 feel. Like
Oh man, yeah, that
the
one's so good.
like
That's
just the
so good.
super dark and gritty. I see the priest on the Toralon converted with the Griffin head.
Yeah, like I think this is
Looks
his free guild
great.
general on Griffin, which
Yep.
is freaking awesome. The Toralon has such a better body for it.
Yep. And then not the least of which, I don't know why there we go. And then you have, I don't even know what this dude is, but kudos to him. I want him. Yes, it's so
It's like
good.
an AOS petited engine. I don't know what it is.
Yes. Yeah, I've been trying to figure out how to do mechs, dwarf mechs, for some of my cav. And like this one's a little bit too big, but I'm still chewing on it because it's a great idea. And then finally his cog fort. Yep.
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 Pretty
It's
awesome.
a cog fort.
It's amazing.
It's so fantastic. Yeah. I love the crawling cog fort. So I don't know what it's for, but I like it.
I would assume even if it's just on his display board, and like that's
Yes.
some of the, you can see the steam tank bit down there. You can see the
Yep.
legs off of the
The chaos
yes. Why can't I think of that dummy soul grinder? The legs off
soul
the
grinder.
soul grinder. The old like not watchtower, but the Empire building, and then the 40K or was the watchtower? I don't know what it's called. That building, yes.
Yeah. The
And then
Warscrolls Citadel,
there
and
you
then the terrain stuff from the
Sector Mechanicus.
Adept. Yep, Sector Mechanicus that I have a ton of.
Yep.
Yep. Looks great. Did a great job. I love it. I love all of it. Yeah, so like if you're doing a city, you should be doing a big conversion project. Like figure it out, dream on it, sit on it, and then do that. Anybody can paint up some pantaloons, but do something flashy. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. Like, it's just this book represents such a unique and awesome opportunity to to make an army your own, right?
Yep.
In a way that few other books have so strikingly. Like every book is going to include like this is different color schemes and this is different forces
Yep.
and stuff like that. But this one more than any really seats them in the world in a way that you can feel. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like
Totally.
it because these different realms have different tactics, histories, traditions that are like brought to life in this book and have a very different feeling to them. Like the difference between something that's living city, this sort of like big giant tree city, created in bond with the Sylvaneth, should have a different feel to it than something that's in the Phoenicium, right? Which was this like the city locked that was locked in amber and freed by the magical ministrations of swirling Phenai, right? Like, and is now the home of the guard, like
Or
whatever.
like to push farther though, like or I want to see people making their own cities like
Sure,
based
as like
on these other cities.
yeah,
Yes.
absolutely, because there's no reason you can't be a successor city,
Right.
right?
Right.
Like these are the capitals, but there are whatever. But there are other cities that you can place in the realms that are functionally like I'm Hallow whatever, like I use the Hallow Heart rules, but I'm the Hallow Warriors or whatever. You get the point, right? The city of Howling Griffin. I don't know, something.
Yep.
So
It's a great example, and that'll be a great segue to my hobby time if you're ready to move into hobby
let's do
time.
it. Let's do. Well, I know I need to give my pick.
Yep.
Here's my pick.
Yep.
If you
Do that.
want to see more on all the city stuff now, and you can't wait, and you're not up on all the spoilers, and you don't want to go through and dig through leak after leak, I'm going to link you to Rob's show, The Honest Wargamer. They did a pretty nice long show, and they went through city by city, blow by blow, with with a good amount of detail. So if you're interested, check that out. I'll link it down below. Okay.
Be prepared to hear a lot about Hollow Heart.
Sure. Absolutely. All right, let's go to hobby time. You're obviously working on something big there, Tom.
I am, and it's funny. You were looking for words for a alternative hollow uh, Hollow Heart.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and so I'm doing like as I had been planning a set. Like, let me start again. So with my Night Haunt,
Mm-hmm.
if you'll
Take
remember,
two.
I had talked about take two. With my Night Haunt, I had wanted to do my death, like my like a Druchii, like Dark Elves
Yeah.
twist.
Yep.
And so I've long talked about like this solidified in the last couple of weeks. And now I'm going public with the project now. So I've long talked about my death cult elves, right? The elves that like resorted to necromancy when they were trying to pull out the souls from Slaanesh,
Mm-hmm.
from the captured Slaanesh. And while some souls were less digested, less corrupted. Some like that. The lore in my stuff is that some were not only were they not unscathed, not untainted by Slaanesh, but in fact they were the souls couldn't be pulled out like intact, and so they have varying degrees of corporeality and an embodiment. And so like what I've done is my Night Haunt army that was Druchii based, Dark Elf based. I am now blowing that out into like it will be an army that will be able to functionally, when I'm done, span not only Night Haunt, but also Legions of Nagash and Cities of Sigmar. And so it'll be a Shyish based elf army. And so I have some of the stuff that I've been working on that I'll show you the scheme for what it is. It's gonna be feel very standard death because right now I'm working almost exclusively on the Night Haunt part. But I've already plotted out what it's going to be. The city itself is going to be called Hollow Heart rather than Hallow Heart, and it'll be based on Hollow Heart because it's a really good city. And it's doing everything I want it to do, which is this like necromancy, death-based magic.
Mm-hmm.
And so here's my scheme. This is what I'm working on. So these are my Night Haunt as of right now. And it's coming together. So there's still a lot of work. Obviously, I'm still working on a number of base coats and stuff like that. But it's kind of it looks like I may have an army to play when the event drops in a couple weeks. So
I'm excited about that.
Yeah.
I'm excited that you may actually have an army.
Yeah. So I'm not just gonna have to play recycled stuff. So I'm basically gonna take some of the themes and stuff like that I've done here and blow it out over a bunch of different models and do a big expansive line. So it'll be fun. I'm looking forward to it. So this is what I've been working on.
Nice. For myself, I actually got the Knight into like a sort of draft final before I left, but I didn't post anything because I finished it up right before I took off. And my goal is to actually like go back with fresh eyes when I get back and spend a couple more hours on it. Make sure that like I've asked some people for some feedback. People gave me some feedback. I just want to make sure that like you see a model differently when you don't look at it for 4 or 5 days and then suddenly come back to it than you do when you're just staring at it for the 100+ hours straight. I've been staring at that model, working on like, all this detail. And so as a result, I think it'll be good to like go back to it then and have a think and really, really, really give it a look. Right.
Right.
I think that there's something to be said for that. Like if you're trying to if you're trying to make like a competitive, army, right? There's something to be said for or competitive army, I'm sorry, a competitive model, like if you're painting for competition, right? Because this is going to be a Golden Demon model. There's something to be said for when you think you're done, putting it to the side, waiting a week, and then coming back to it and giving it another look. Because you will notice stuff you didn't notice before. In addition, you should always try to get feedback from other people, seconds and thirds and fifth sets of eyes. But even your own set of eyes can be a different set of eyes. So, but I'm very excited. That Night Titan, he's mostly done. Let's call him 95%.
Nice.
And and so that's great.
Considering you said you're going to be working on this for the next couple, months, I'm excited
No,
to
I
hear
said
that's almost
weeks.
done.
I said for the rest of that month, and I still am.
Okay.
It's taken me 3 weeks, and it'll take one more, and that's okay. But it's a big project. Anytime I go into these nights, they're like, 120 to 150 hour projects. Like, keep in mind,
Yep.
my wife was gone this last weekend up until the point where I
Oh,
left.
yeah.
Like, literally, she got back in, and I left like a couple hours later. So I had every hour this weekend doing nothing except sitting at my desk. Like, I spent almost 20 hours on Saturday and
Yeah.
Sunday each day, like 40 hours over the 2 days,
Yep.
just sitting there working on it. So, you can make up a lot of time when you're not doing anything else.
Totally.
So yeah, I managed to get a lot of work in over those 4 days, you might say. Yeah, so there you go. Cool. All right, so shall we talk about some endless spells, Tom?
I am totally in. Let's do this.
So let's set the stage here. As we mentioned, there's going to be a lot more, I think, use of endless spells coming into the meta. One, because of Cities of Sigmar.
Yep.
And what the city wizards do, and this is true across every city. So this isn't restricted to any individual city.
Right.
Any caster you have who is a Cities of Sigmar wizard, including your Sylvaneth wizards in the Living City,
Yep.
and your Stormcast wizards in any city.
Yep.
If they summon an endless spell, it will be empowered as though it was cast in its home realm. So, like, lots of the endless spells say empowered by Shaiish or something, right? And if, by the way, that's the most common one. There is a lot of empowered by Shaiish going around, surprisingly, because we did that whole release with all the death stuff. But if you cast any of those spells, it gets the benefits as though it was in that realm.
You were in that realm.
Right. Okay. So, in addition to that, like I said, I think Tzeentch is going to be on the horizon. In addition to that, you've got Hollowheart, which can just generate not only a ton of double casters, but also double casters without rated bonuses.
Every caster is a double caster.
In Hollowheart, yes.
Yes.
Which are basically turning your 90-point wizards into double casters, right?
Yep. Or, like whether they be battle mages or sorceresses, or suddenly that knight incantor is a 140-point double caster, or Lord Arcanums are 160-point double casters, and it goes on and on and on.
And it's pretty good. So, what Tom and I are going to do is we're going to revisit the endless spells today, and in light of this, talk about which ones we think are good, and which ones we think are we're going to pass. Like, what's a take? What's a pass? So, Tom, shall we begin in light of this?
Yeah.
Okay. So, where do you want to begin? Do you want to go alphabetically?
Sure, let's do it.
Aether Void Pendulum. Yeah?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Normally a 50-point spell. We all know it. It's the big scything blade thing. You summon it. It goes in one direction, straight out, right? Just, and it hits people, and it does a D6 mortal wounds, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Doesn't have any, any additional value in the cities because it doesn't have any empowered by.
Right.
But I argue it is still one of the better endless spells. I think in an endless spell heavy army, you're still going to see it often because it does a D6 and because it's very hard to turn back on you.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think that it has value. Yeah, that's what I would say. I think it has value.
Yeah, I think it depends on like how deep you go.
Yeah.
But into endless spells, it wouldn't be my first pick for a damaging spell. But like I've seen lists that have 6 or 7 endless spells in them, and it would probably show up in that list.
And you may have received some of those from me.
Right. So this one's still making the cut even without an empowered, right? Like for sort of a thing to look at.
Yep.
Okay. Right on.
Let's do
Uh,
it.
the next one again doesn't have an empowered by, but I really want to talk about it nonetheless,
Oh
which is the Balewind Vortex.
God,
Tom,
I love it so much.
Balewind Vortex. This old hobgoblin, dread. A dread spell
Yeah.
of for the past years and years. Would you like to
Yep.
talk about just one sample thing very quick of why Balewind again does not have an empowered version? But
Yeah.
why, Tom? Why do you still love Balewind, and why has it shown up in so many of these lists that you've shown me?
Um. Okay. So Balewind, it has a couple selling points. Like to cover the basics of it, to remind you, Balewind does three things. The first is that the caster gains +1 save if they're on top of the Balewind. The second is that it increased the number of casts that you can attempt by one, so you gain a bonus spell to cast every turn. And the third thing that it does is it increases the range of all your spells that you cast by 6 inches. So that's pretty good. Um, so one of the interesting things about it is that the way that they have ruled how ranges work is that all ranges on those. Now, first of all, the range increase does not work with endless spells. So don't think that like it's going to help you do anything with endless spells, because in general it's just not. If a reminder, you can only cast one endless spell per turn. So if your caster casts Balewind, he's not casting an endless spell as well. Like that is his endless spell. But one of the advantages is that 6-inch range is going to boost a lot of spells and make a lot of spells that like may not seem as good. It's going to make them like a lot better. So let's just take one example of this, which is Chain Lightning from the the Azir Battle Mages.
Mm-hmm.
It says choose a target within 18 inches, an enemy unit within 18 inches. That's fine. What that means is that you choose a unit 18 inches out. If you're on the Balewind, it goes to 24 inches. So that's pretty good. That unit takes a D3 damage. And then any units within 6 inches of them, you roll a dice on a 4+. They also take a D3 mortals. It's pretty good, right? What this ends up doing is it goes, it expands that 6-inch bubble to 12 inches out.
Right.
So what that ends up meaning is that like
a 24-inch wide swath of their army gets potentially splashed by D3 mortal wounds.
Right, and that's 12 inches out from every edge of that unit. So if they have like a large spread out like line of troops, right?
Like a chaff unit, for example, they've strung across the front of their line. You can hit that and then sweep the majority of their army into it.
Yeah, you're going to hit basically their entire army with that.
Yep.
Because it's gonna kick out 6 inches in all directions. That's one example. Another example is the Lord the Lord Arcanum spell. Not the Lord Arcanum. The Knight Azira spell. I think they do like a 1 mortal wound to all units within 18 inches of themselves, and then reduce run and charge by 1. You can feasibly put them on a Balewind and then not only put them on a 2-up save, but also then have a 24-inch bubble of 1 damage and -1 run and charge for the enemy. Takedown.
People are asking the question. They have answered this. I know. Look, like people in the comments are going to say it's not the spell effect range. They've answered it in the FAQ that it affects.
I argue the same. To be clear, I argued the same as you are arguing, and a GW FAQ this specifically and said this affects all ranges.
Yep.
All ranges.
Because there is no D&D like concept of the distinction between a range and an area of effect. We get what you're saying. But the reality is this question has been asked and answered. Yeah, we both actually don't think it should work like this, but right now it does.
Right now it does. And they answered this specifically with regard to the Gaunt Summoner spell.
Yeah.
Because it's not only like the targeted, but also the area of effect that it increases. And they clarified that it does there. And oh, by the way, Hollow Heart also has that same spell.
Right. Yep.
Yeah.
So, like, look, anybody who plays D&D understands that there's this concept of range, which is the distance from the caster to the point of effect, and area of effect, which is the measurement from the point of effect out.
Right.
Warhammer has no such distinction. So, like, you can bring that and unpack that in your head, but there's no real thing there you're pointing at in the rules. There is no rule that undergirds that assumption. It says if there's a range, and it doesn't affect endless spells because they've specifically said endless spells aren't like that. Endless spells are spells in a completely different way. But for a spell, if it has some AoE bomb that goes off it 3 inches or 6 inches, it now goes 9 inches or 12, right? Or if it says everybody within 24 inches is now everybody within 30, right? Or if it's a PB AoE that's 3 inches around you, it's a PB AoE that's now 9 inches around you, right?
Yep.
And that's just like all of these kinds of measurements just go up. So.
Yeah. And so, like, it is worth 40 points. I know people have challenged it. No, it really is worth your 40 points.
Sure. And there's some good spells in here. So, yeah, I think, again, it's doing a lot. Giving you that bonus save, giving you that bonus range, giving you that bonus cast. Like, it's doing a lot for 40 points. Okay. Do we need to talk about Cogs? I mean, Cogs has no added effect. We all know what Cogs does. I think it's as good as it ever was. If you find that the movement is worthwhile for 80 points, great, fine. But I don't know. Like, do we need to go any deeper than that? Everybody knows Cogs at this point, right?
Yes, everybody knows Cogs.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know if it's worth 80 points, actually, to be clear.
Yeah, I'm not saying I think it is or isn't. I mean, like, it can do stuff, it can give movement, it can bonus charges. There are some armies where that movement, that setting is going to be highly worth it. And there is a lot of armies where it's not, and people are trying to take it to, like, gild a lily or cover for shortcomings, and it's just going to burn them because it'll give their enemies the same bonus, and then they'll just get out. They'll get buried under the same way. Because you not only you can't just use it to, like, oh, I'm kind of slow. Like, if you're trying to use it to make GoTrek go faster, that's a bad use of Cogs, right? Good use of Cogs, bad use of Cogs, right? That's a bad use of Cogs because you're bonusing the whole enemy army to give your dumb dwarf 2 extra inches of movement and charging, right? Like, that's not enough.
I mean, yeah, that's true.
There are better ways to get him around.
I might still do that. Not gonna lie.
Sure.
But you gotta make him move faster. That's all I'm saying.
Sure.
So Cogs, I want to also do a casual mention to some of the Stormcast endless spells.
Okay.
Because
I had
you're
a few of
going
them in the list. All right.
Yeah, you're going to see them in like you skipped over the Celestial Vortex, which is what made me think of it.
Oh, I only pulled in, like, the ones that either had a change or I thought were actually good.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine. Go through the normal list, and then I want to do some honorable mentions as well.
That's fine. Yeah, like I pulled in some of the Stormcast or specific stuff, but I left out stuff that I just thought was, like, total garbage or wasn't empowered, and I still think that dumb Hammer Hurricane is garbage.
Yep.
Sorry.
Totally agree. Yeah, I don't disagree.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. So, Tom, your camera went away. Oh, there you go. You're back. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. So next up, we come to the first spell in my alphabetical list that actually has an empowered by, which is our Emerald Life Swarm, a spell I literally haven't thought about since they released it. Okay. 50 points. It went down in the last adjustment. So the way Emerald Life Swarm normally works, let's refresh everybody here because God knows I didn't remember exactly how this worked. Okay. After this model is set up or it is moved, pick one unit within 1 inch of it. You can either heal D3 wounds that have been allocated to that unit, or if no wounds are currently allocated to the unit, you may return a number of slain models to it that have a combined wounds characteristic equal to or less than the roll of the D3. So, simplest example, if you hit a unit of 1 wound dudes and you roll 2, you can add, and you're missing 2 bodies, you can add 2 guys back. There you go.
Right. So it actually gives you model regeneration.
Correct. Yep.
Yeah.
But despite this, I think most people have still felt this isn't very worth it, right? Cast on a 6, 50 points. It's a high cost to maybe once a battle round get like 1 to 3 dudes back, or heal 1 to 3
Right.
wounds
To one unit. Like
to
if it
one
was
unit.
all units, if it was all units within 1 inch, like there may be gas there, but it's not. It's one unit.
Right.
Yeah.
However, if your battle is taking place in the realm of life, as it will be when you're a Cities of Sigmar wizard, roll a d6 to determine the number of wounds healed or worth of wounds models returned, basically. So suddenly it moves it from a d3 to a d6. Now suddenly to me that got more interesting. This one moved from an absolute no to like on the cusp. That's what it became for me. What do you feel about this one, Tom?
No, I agree. Like it. Anytime you let me put Phoenix Guard back on the table,
Sure, and a d6
you
of
have
them at that. There's a big difference between.
You have my attention.
Yeah, there's a big difference between a d3 and a d6, right? Big difference.
Or potentially 3 Cav models, like 3 Drake spawn models.
Oh yeah, sure. Yeah, for hitting like the Cav models, or repairing your steam tanks or your Luminarchs or your Huracanums, right? You're actually getting some good healing back there, or healing Gotrek.
Yeah. So or healing Gotrek, which like every wound you heal him is like worth its pounds.
Oh my god! Yeah, every wound you heal on him is like the equivalent of healing 12 wounds.
Yes. So I mean, what I will say is that like I have some lists with Lifeswarm, but it's also been the spell that has been pulled the fastest.
Right.
Because when I have to make decisions, like while I can control where it is the first turn, I can't control where it is after the first turn. And it is as likely to start returning D6 wounds of models of my guys as it is the enemies.
Right.
And so like it is the fastest one of mine to be pulled. That's what I'll say. But I think there's gas in it, and I would put it in lists.
And the answer to your question, takedown, is, I mean, like, it depends on how big of a unit you can get it around. But yes, if in moving at 10, like, even if his question was basically, could you put it inside a unit, like a big cloud, to where
you landlock it?
Yeah, to where you landlock it, to where even when it flies, it's 10 inches. There's no way for them to legally land it outside of your unit, right? So they have to heal you. Yeah, sure, you could do that. That would totally work. You just need a big enough cloud or enough troops or in between 2 units or something like that, right? Like 10 inches flying is a pretty big thing, and this doesn't have the biggest base. It's basically on like a cavalry base, right?
Yep.
So like, but yes, you could.
Yeah, maybe.
You can lock it. Okay.
Yep.
All right. So here's an interesting one. Let's talk about them Geminids. The Geminids of Ulgish. I'm going to pronounce every one of those words wrong because it makes me smile. So the Geminids. 60 points. Obviously, they had went up in the last adjustment. And we all know what these do. You get a little light ball and you get a dark ball, right? And each ball does D3 mortal wounds. One gives you -1 to attack. One gives you -1 to hit. And you can't hit the same unit with both balls, right?
Right.
Now, fascinatingly, it performs better when cast by one of these wizards than it ever theoretically could have in any past game. Okay? Because the one was empowered by Haish and one was empowered by Ulgu, and you couldn't have ever been in both realms previously. Right. Yeah. Right? So now basically you get to reroll a D3 for both balls. That's what you get. Okay.
Yep.
Like, okay.
What's your thought on this?
I don't think they're worth it even here. I mean, I think let me say it this way. There are a couple armies that I've seen you have the capability to build, because there's actually quite a bit of -1 floating around in the Cities of Sigmar. And
oh my god, yes.
If you were trying
my current army has like -3 to hit.
Right. If you were trying to build like the least fun army in history where you're just crushing people with -1s everywhere, then yes, I think it could be a valuable part of that strategy. Valuable part of that strategy. I don't think that the extra damage from the empowerment matters at all. I think it's like completely irrelevant to the math. Either this spell is
Yeah.
worth it in your overall strat, or it's not. Right?
Yeah.
So
I agree with that, and I have just found that it's been a hard pass for me. Like whenever this has popped up, like I would just rather spend those 60 points in other ways.
yeah.
If it was 40 points, I think it would still be viable as a damage spell, but at 60, like it's just not doing enough because it's competing with like Purple Sun. You know, it's competing with just other stuff. So
I agree. There's too much other stuff at this points value. It's just like, and I'm glad. I hope this thing remains non-competitive. I don't like it. I think it's an unfun endless spell to play against. Frankly, that's what I think. So there you go. I don't want to see it on the table. Getting neg one to hit and neg one attack is just cripplingly unfun. Sorry. Like, it's just not a good time. All right, next up. Here's a sideways one. What's that?
We just like to have fun in ways that you don't, Vince.
Sure. Yeah, I like to actually play the game and use my toys. When your game results in me not being able to play with my toys, that's not fun for one of the two players at the table, universally.
I'll let you roll die.
No. Yeah, I get to roll less die and they do less. It's terrible. It's terrible and you're terrible. All right, here we go. All right, so here's a fun one. Horrorghast. That's right. The Nagash's head thing. I bet you forgot this one even existed, didn't you, Tom?
Yeah.
How much is the Horrorghast? How much is this thing? Do you know how much this thing costs? How many points do you think this thing is?
I don't know.
60.
It's 60, right?
60 points for this piece of garbage. All right. But it is empowered by Shaiish, Tom. It is. Do you know what it does if it's empowered by Shaiish?
I don't, actually. Like, this is not on my radar.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Get ready for this awesomeness. So we all know that normally it gives like neg 1 / neg 2 to bravery, right? If they're close to the model. Yeah? That's what it does. And it flies 9 inches.
Right.
If you're in Shaiish, though, it can fly 12 inches instead of 9. Huh? Changes the calculation, huh? No, it's still Garbo. Get out of here. What in the world is this about? How did this thing get priced? Why is this thing at 60 points? It makes no sense.
Get me out of here.
Yes. Also, your internet is very bad right now, Tom. I don't think it's me. I think it's you. Just so you know.
That's weird.
Close all your other windows.
I don't know. Like, I don't have any other windows open.
No, that's fine. Who knows? Probably just your internet being
and nobody else is home.
It's probably just your standard hamster internet. You're okay. You're on potato cam again. It's
weird.
Fine. Okay. Next up, Lunchbox the Soul Seeker. That's fine. Lunchbox the Soul Seeker, 60 points. We all know this guy, right? Mister, he can move models, yeah? But he requires the cost.
Yep.
This guy actually gets real interesting in when empowered by Shaiish. So his move, it's just a movement increase again, but his move goes from 12 to 18. So he can take people a lot farther. I would argue I think Bridge is probably more useful, but it is interesting.
Yep.
So that's cool.
Yes. Yeah. No, I mean, like, so deal. I look like in my build, I looked at this. Right?
Yep.
Like, and it's one unit. It's only one. It has a smaller print, like, area. It makes you lose models, and it's only 20 points cheaper than Bridge.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, I think we're going to talk about Bridge in a second, and in my mind, Bridge just beats Lunchbox now, especially post FAQ, right? All right.
Yep.
Now,
Yep.
Tom, are you ready for the
I
most?
don't. I don't know why my internet's so bad.
It is. It's fine. I don't know what else to do with it. We'll make it happen. If you need to become a bouncing ball at some point, you can bouncing ball it. No big deal. Um, you ready, Tom, for what in my opinion is the biggest hotness? Here we go. There you go. We'll try Tom as the bouncing ball, and we'll see if that helps at
What's
all.
that?
Okay. Malevolent Maelstrom. All right. Current cost on Malevolent Maelstrom, Tom. How much does Malevolent Maelstrom cost?
10. 10.
10 points. 10 points. That's it. And it's all about building energy points on the Malevolent Maelstrom, right? And the Malevolent Maelstrom, what's fascinating about it is if you're empowered by Shyish, you get 1 additional energy point to this model at the start of each battle round. That's actually pretty good. For 10 points, I'm a buyer. I'm a hard buyer on this one.
Interesting. I remember my hot time. You actually this model put it up on my desk, and it's interesting because I think that there's, I think it's viable, and I think that's interesting about doing at that cost. Like depending on your living, it's going to be substantial.
You were very robot-y.
Like there. I don't know our list if I want a lot of these guys floating around. Additional. Okay.
I've got an idea,
Weird.
Tom. That's okay. Why don't you do this real quick? Why don't you drop out, reset real quick, and come back in?
How about you keep talking?
I'll keep talking. You reset your computer, start back up, and come in. And I'll entertain us for a moment as I talk about my next pick. Hello, everybody. So it'll just be me for a moment, and that's fine. Let's just we'll it'll just be you and me for a few minutes. So yeah, I love this thing. Obviously, the ability to get a bunch more Maelstrom points is cool. You do have to be careful because it's going to try to chew at your spells as well. But proper maneuvering, proper placement. I don't think it's and plus your casting bonuses can be so outrageous in something like Hallowheart. Who cares? You'll never get dispelled by this thing, and it just eats up their spells. So potential. Okay. The next one I wanted to discuss, and I'm sure Tom will be sad he's not here for this one, but the Prismatic Palisade, everybody's favorite wall. What I love about this thing is 30 points. 3-0, right? And we mentioned the neg 1 to hit thing. So the way this model works is pretty straightforward, right? If a line goes through the wall, you can't see models on the other side. It's the anti-shooting endless spell, which, by the way, I would argue is going to become way more valuable in this world that's coming, where Cities is going to bring a lot of shooting into the meta. Potentially, the Bone Reapers will eventually bring a lot of shooting into the meta, but you can't spellcast across it if you need line of sight. It blocks line of sight through the Prismatic Palisade. Okay? And so, again, I think that alone increases the value of this thing. If it did nothing else, I think its 30 points is going up in value. Especially since, keep in mind, the new version of the Hellstorm rocket battery now requires line of sight. It no longer can... It can't shoot at things it can't see. So something like the wall will now block it if it's in the way. In addition, anytime you roll a die for each unit within 6 inches of the palisade itself, and on a 5+, they're -1 to hit until the end of that turn. But if you're empowered by Haish, which you would be in your city's army, you add 1 to this roll. So suddenly you're on a 4+, giving out neg 1s to hit to every unit within 6 inches of where you set up that wall, in addition to blocking line of sight. The ability of this thing to both stop movement, because it's a friendly model they can't move across, so if they can't fly, it literally stops them dead in their tracks. It's a big, long model. 2, stop shooting, which I would argue is going to become much more prevalent. And 3, then pass out big neg 1 to hit penalties for everybody else who's near it on a 4+. Yeah, Prismatic Palisade, 30 points, well spent. I mean, that's solid in my book. Okay. So, we'll wait on Tom. We'll see if he comes back. We'll see how many of these can I do before Tom gets back. Who knows? Who knows? Let's find out. Purple Sun. Let's do the big old purple sun. The angry skull face thing. So Purple Sun obviously got a lot cheaper, went down to like 50 points, which I think we were all happy to see. It's a very cool spell. It moves around, it floats around, it does wounds to things, it kills people. It's great. Depending on how many wounds they have. And the Purple Sun itself doesn't get empowered that much by these spellcasters, but it gets empowered some, and I think in a relatively meaningful way. So normally this thing flies 9 inches, and obviously when it touches units that are, less than 6 wounds, you roll a die, and on a 6, it kills the model for everybody it passed over. And when you hit somebody who's 6 or more, then on a 6, they take 2d6 mortal wounds. Cool. Simple enough. So very destructive because, it hits things like Blight Kings or stuff like that. And on a 6, it just kills the whole model. Just counts them as slain, which is good. Interesting way to clear out cheap Slaanesh heroes that are less than 6 wounds, stuff like that, because they then get no depravity for them because they're sort of slain outright, which is cool. But this makes it fly 12 inches instead of 9. 3-inch difference, not the biggest deal in the world, but I would argue, if you're looking for a good, damaging, floaty, interesting spell, I think we're just talking Purple Sun, Tom. Welcome back.
Oh, yeah.
And your internet's much more clear now, so good stuff. Clearly your computer was just sleepy and needed a restart. And I was saying that the difference that it makes when it's empowered is not huge. It goes from, 9-inch fly to 12-inch fly. But I would argue if you're building the magical vortex army where you're trying to murder your opponent through endless spells, it is a notable difference, and this should be in your picks.
Yeah, it just has to touch a unit.
Right.
Don't forget that. This is not about going over models. This is touching a unit, and so every inch literally counts on this thing.
Exactly. So in my mind, even that 3 inches, if it means you get one more unit touched, that's suddenly a lot more 6s, right? And that's quite a lot of value, because what you want this thing doing is just swinging around and touching as many things as possible, frankly, right? Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. I had talked about Palisade while you were gone, Prismatic Palisade, which in my mind is the hottest of hot picks, because it's 30 points. Shooting is going to become more prevalent. You know what not a lot of people in Cities of Sigmar do? Not a lot. Some, but not many. Fly. You know what not a lot of orcs do? Fly. You know what not a lot of Maw Tribe ogres do? Fly. You know what not a lot of Ossiarch Bone Reaper dudes are seemingly going to do? Fly. Palisade blocks them all off. Cities and theoretically Bone Reapers will have a large amount of shooting. Stops all that nonsense. And it turns the...
Well, not the catapults, but yeah.
Well, maybe. You don't know that they're not going to require line of sight. Maybe, maybe not. Like I said, Hellstorm rocket batteries require line of sight now. But most importantly, you know how that thing broadcasts a 6-inch bubble of neg 1 to hit on a 5-up? It becomes a 4-up under the casters of Cities of Sigmar.
Yeah, that's pretty sexy.
Yeah. For 30 points, that's a buy. It's a good one.
Yeah, it's just a great utility piece. That you can definitely use, that you will be able to find a use for.
Quicksilver swords, everybody's favorite racist swords. Yeah, the swords. They go from doing 12 dice to 15 dice, meaning that on
Yep.
average, if you point these at a chaos unit, you will get 5 mortal wounds out of it since you're pinging on a 5+.
Yeah, I don't mind killing heroes, five wound heroes, every time that sword touches
Yeah.
somebody.
Yeah, on average dice, you kill a 5 wound chaos hero when you point these swords at them. Yes.
That's not too bad.
Pretty good. Pretty good. And like somebody had said, some of these are quite easy to dispel.
Yep.
Sure. One of
Okay.
them is, or two of them is. The plan of a kind of army we're talking about here is I'm going to throw 8 of these out there. You don't even have enough casters to attempt to dispel all of these. Good luck. I hope you roll hot with the 2 rolls you get at this. And by the way, enjoy using your magic for nothing else for the rest of the game.
And not only that, like a
it's crippling phase control.
Right, and a well-constructed version of this army will have their own ability to get rid of the endless spells that they want to get rid of, so they can recast them.
Right, because
like,
they'll just have like a +3 to dispel endless, shut it off, redrop it.
Right, like they actually want a lot of these spells to get rid of them at the start of their hero phase, so that they can put them back where they want them.
Right.
Like Comet is not useful once it's down if it stays down. Because the problem is that once Comet drops, it does damage and then it just it pulses and whatever. But if you read that ever phase, that's a really big deal.
Yep.
So you actually want a lot of your endless spells to be removed.
I agree. All right, Ravenak's Gnashing Jaws, the big jaws. 30 points. Yep. Still not sure they're worth it. It's got a real big base, so I guess if you're just looking to block up board space, that's fine.
Right.
And what it does is when it's moved, every unit that has any models passed across and each other unit within an inch when it lands suffer D3 mortal wounds. In addition, subtract 1 from the bravery characteristic of each unit that has any models it passed across until the end of the round. Okay.
It's nice for bravery debuffing, but that's about it.
Sure.
Like bravery with damage. So you got to remember, this is 30 points for -1 bravery and D3 mortals. The screaming spell Nagash Head is 60 points for -2.
Yeah, I understand. It's that's stupid, Nagash Head. That thing needs to come down to 10 points in the
No, I mean it needs to be a solid 20 to 30.
I understand. I was being joking, but yes. Look, you start lower than where you want to end, Tom. It's how you negotiate, okay? See how easy we got to where I really wanted it to be? I said 10 and you were like, no, 20. And I was like, haha, that was my number the whole time. Gotcha. See? Now you just need to be somebody who has any authority over the final points. I'll use the same tactic, and we'll get all these things to where we want. All right. So Jaws normally flies 12 inches. When it's empowered by Gur, it goes a D6 plus 12 inches. Yep. Now, Hui in the chat is saying it's so good when empowered, and it's one of his favorites. I'm okay with it. I don't know that it being empowered makes that much of a difference, because I look at that and go, yay, it flies 13 instead of 12 now, because I'm going to roll the 1. That's all I think about. That's just my bad luck. But yes, it could go 18. It'll go an average of 15 inches now. So it's an average of a 3-inch bump to its movement, which, okay. Yeah. Again, this one to me is actually on the cusp in the Magic Army.
Yeah. Yep.
It's okay. Doesn't do quite as many wounds as I want. Does have a nice movement, but it is a difficult cast. It casts on an 8. Now, there are some versions of that Hallowheart build that don't really care that much, but 8 is still 8, right?
Yep.
It's not a small number, and that's my biggest problem with it. If this thing cast on a 6, I think I'd like it a lot more.
Right. Yeah, I agree with that.
Even a 7, but whatever. Okay. Shards of Valagar. All right, so I'm just going to reread this whole thing, because when is the last time people looked at this thing out of Forbidden Power, right? So the shards are 40 points.
Yep.
and it's 2 models, right?
Yep.
The 2 shards.
Yep. It's the Geminids 2.0.
Correct. So, if successfully cast, you set up the first shards of Valagar wholly within 6 inches of the caster. Pretty close.
Yep.
And the second wholly within 12 of the first. Right?
Yep.
So the second one could be wholly within 18.
Right.
Right? Okay. So we all get how that's working. At the start of the movement phase, draw an imaginary straight line 1 millimeter wide between the closest parts of the bases of the 2 shards of Valagar models. Each unit passed across by this line is ensnared until the end of that turn. Have the move characteristic of a unit that's ensnared, and in addition, subtract 1 from hit rolls for attacks made by that unit.
Yep.
Okay. All right. Now, this thing has a rather interesting way it can move because it's not like predatory in the standard way. So kind of who gets to move one of the shards is funky based on like basically the same sort of deterministic mechanic as predatory spells themselves, but we're not going to worry about that.
Yep.
The important part is that if it's empowered by Shyish, the first shard can be 12 inches out.
Right. Which is huge.
Huge difference. Huge difference. Because suddenly that second shard goes out to 24 inches. Like, big deal. On the 18-inch maps where you start, if you had first turn, you could literally drop it behind some of their models in their line and ensnare their troops round 1 before they're even off the line. Have their move before they've moved and give them -1 to hit.
And this is 40 points, right?
40 points. Yep. Obviously, later game, once they're actually moving, your ability to then have your caster burrowed, but still throw out over your own troops, right? Like out over the probably 8-inch sort of buffer zone where your troops are, and then have the shards out in front of there in the middle ground where their troops are. The difference between having that 6 and 12-inch cast is massive to these things' value.
Right.
I think when you with the 6-inch thing, they're almost worthless. With the 12-inch, I think they are very strong. Very strong.
Yeah, like especially if you're casting them through
a portal or something.
Yeah.
Sure.
You know,
but we don't need to go that direction. I mean, like 100 things want to go through that portal. I mean, it's still really strong.
I'd be really And is it considered predatory?
No. It is not.
Okay.
It is not a predatory spell. The trick with how it works is like
I know how it works.
You roll.
No, I was thinking about synergies with spell portal. Like if a predatory ends within 6 inches, it gets sucked through.
Yeah, it is not predatory.
It's not predatory, so it doesn't trigger the get sucked through effect.
Correct.
That's what I was trying to figure out. I think it's good. Like I think that it needs to be at least be considered.
Sleeper hit of the summer, in my opinion. All right.
Really?
No, I mean, but it's good.
Yeah, I'd say I think Bridge is probably the sleeper hit, but I think it is good.
Oh, Bridges. Well, we'll get to Bridge in a second. We're saving some of the best for last. Okay. Yeah. All right. Okay. Let's talk about the Shyish Reaper, shall we?
Yep. Sure.
So this is the other big giant scythe spell.
Well, no, that's the Night Haunt one, right?
Yeah. It's the Night Haunt one, but it's another big giant scythe spell, right? Like there are multiple just big swingy weapons that are endless spells. I'm just joking on the fact that aesthetically, the idea of just summoning a big swingy weapon is a pretty good,
it's a thing.
It's a thing. Okay.
Yeah.
So yes, the Shyish Reaper. Okay. So you summon it. Only Nagash and Night Haunt wizards can attempt to summon it, right? Yep. And I'm trying to think if there's any way you could mercenary get this guy into your army.
No, there are no Night Haunts that you can pull in.
Okay, well then we don't have to worry about that guy.
Right.
There you go. I was trying. I left that on there because I couldn't remember if there were any ghost mercenaries.
No, there's not.
The Necro you could bring a Necromancer, but he can't get it. Yeah.
Right.
Darn shame. Skip it. Soul Screen Bridge. Oh, the
Oh.
bridge. All right, here's the simple thing. The bridge, normally, it can suck up all the units that are in 6 inches of one end and deposit them wholly within 6 inches of one end and deposit them at the other end of the bridge, which has to be 12 inches away. When it's cast out of one of your casters and cities,
When it's empowered.
When it's empowered, yes, it goes to 24 inches from the first. Heyo. 80
And remember, you're
spell.
6 inches out.
Yes.
And remember, you're 6 inches out.
That's right.
Which means that, which means that like you could feasibly span 36 inches.
Well, the first one's wholly within 6 of you, right? So the edge of that's there.
Okay, so like,
and then the next one has to be wholly within 24, and everybody who's set up on the other side
is wholly within 6.
Correct. Right.
So you can, but what I'm saying is you can jump out basically almost 6 inches on the other side of the bridge.
Yep.
So even though, and you can be 6 inches back from the bridge to be teleported out.
Yep.
And so like you can, like, it's not a 24-inch gap, and the bridges themselves are long. Well, no, it's still going to be 24 between wholly within 24 of the other one.
Yeah, this is wholly within.
But yeah, I mean, you can easily, let me say it this way, you can easily get 30 inches.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, like without a doubt. It means that units are getting sucked up and thrown 30 inches around the board, right? That's exactly what it means.
And what's strategic here is that you didn't say unit, you said units.
Units. At the start of your movement phase, friendly units wholly within 6 inches of one of the Soul Screen Bridge models from the end of the spell can travel across it. If they do so, remove it and set it up 6 inches from the other Soul Screen Bridge model and more than 9 inches away from enemy units. Badoom. 30 inches, yeah, as somebody mentioned in the comments, you can, how about threatening almost any objective, anytime, anywhere, because you can suddenly deposit units 30 inches away, right?
Yeah, and the most egregious part of this...
Making, like, multiple shooters suddenly pop up on one side of their line and just open fire.
Yes. Or, like, there are a lot of units in this Cities book that... that they actually gain bonus effectiveness if they don't move.
Mm-hmm. Sure. Like your Iron Drakes, right, would be a good example.
Iron Drakes do it. Sisters of the Watch do it as well.
Yep.
Where they both gain bonus attacks if they don't move.
Yep.
You know, the joke being the only thing slower than dwarves are elves that don't want to move. And the reality is that with this, setups are not moves, and so literally, like, it's just like a conveyor belt. For those of you guys that have played Fortnite with the little like zip lines that you can get on and shoot from, basically you can just conveyor belt yourself up and down the field, your shooting units, on the Soul Screen Bridge. It's silly. It's silly, hilarious. And so dropping a unit of 20 shooters, downfield to be in range of whatever, it's beautiful.
Also, we should point out in something like the Living City, even at turns later where you've ambushed, you could then use the command ability in there to Soul Screen Bridge them over to somewhere you want, outside of 9 inches, shoot, and then move, basically, because you can force a move in the shooting phase out of the Living City command ability and have your shooters then walk up to 3 inches away and chaff them or charge them from 3 inches. So, the bridge is...
It's hot.
It is hotness.
Hot. Yeah, I love it so much. And it's a great solution for, the movement for, infantry armies. Man, it really sucks to run a bunch of dwarves unless you can teleport them, 30 inches whenever you need to.
Right.
And then, a lot of people say, yeah, but you still have a 9-inch charge. Yeah, but not really. Because all of the armies in this, all of the units in this army, by default, have plus one
in charge. Yep.
Plus 1 run in charge on all of their banners. So they're 8-inch charges. And if you have a Gur Battle Mage in your army, their base spell gives plus 2 run in charge. And so you can have pretty reliable 6-inch charges after the teleports. So I love it. I love everything about it.
Yep.
So I really like the conveyor belt.
Sure.
I mean, the Soul Screen Bridge.
The conveyor belt. Yes, exactly. Um, all right, cool. Tom, would you like to talk about how you can play in the same terrible way Skaven do? That you too can be as awful as Skaven?
How? Which way are you? Which end spell are we at? I'm sorry, I put my
Soul
phone away.
Snare Shackles.
Oh God.
So, Soul Snare Shackles are 40 points. Now, I already mentioned the aforementioned little pyramid things that you stretch out and have their move, right?
Yep.
Soul
Yep.
Snare, when it's empowered by Shaiish, okay?
Yep. Yep.
The rest of your shackles can be set up
Yep.
wholly within 9 inches instead of wholly within uh, six, meaning you can spread them way the heck out.
Yeah.
Meaning that you're gonna take the first thing, you're gonna take your little pillars, you're gonna draw
Yep.
a big line and have a bunch of their units move.
Yep.
And then you're going to take the shackles and you're going to spread it out in this ridiculously massive line now because you've got the center one and the other two are 9 inches off. So it's an
Yep.
18-inch line. And you're going to 3-up, have all of their moves. So now all those other enemy units are now moving a quarter. They have a quarter of movement. I hope they brought their own Soul Scream Bridge because otherwise it's going to be very hard for them to go anywhere.
Yep.
Yes, Tom, when you type something like that to me, it pops up on screen, by the way. Because I have
nice.
open in the background. And we will, because I know you need to get going. So there you go. But yeah, I like Shackles. At 80 points, it's 80 points to ruin their movement. If they don't have Bridge, they go nowhere. That's the answer.
Yeah, it's fantastic. I love it.
All right. Okay. Suffocating Gravetide, our old favorite. Would it get 20 points, right? What's good about Gravetide is it goes 12 inches instead of 8 when it gets set up. So it increases its movement by 50%. Okay.
Right.
Fun. You and I have both agreed that the main use of Suffocating Gravetide, I think, is to be so big and block off so much of the board.
Yeah.
Like it is an asinine amount of space that this spell takes up, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I love it. Like I love it. And it's a great way to just gum up the board.
Yes. Like, again, I think there is some strategy here that's literally just like, can I flood the board with this garbage with all my super casting double casters and make sure that because you in this sort of wizard heavy army, you might not have a lot of bodies and like controlling their movement and blocking the board may become very important. And suddenly having a big giant prismatic palisade and a big giant Gravetide out in the way takes up a huge amount of board space that could just literally prevent them from going anywhere.
Yep.
All right, Tom. You mentioned it at the beginning. It's finally time. The Burning Head. So,
Burning Head.
The Burning Head flies 9 inches. Obviously, when you set it up, you make a move. After this model is moved, each unit that has any models that is passed across and each other unit within an inch of it at the end of its move suffers D3 mortal wounds. You can re-roll hit rolls of 1 for attacks made by units where they are wholly within 9 inches of this model. And if you're empowered by Akshi, how do you say that? Akshi. Then you do D3 plus 1 mortal wounds. Okay.
Yeah.
It's 30 points.
It is. If you're just looking for damage, right? Yeah. You have a bunch of different things at this point level to choose from. The advantage here is that, like, it's going to be valuable the turn you throw it out if you're going to throw it near a combat, like where you want reroll to hit, reroll 1 to hit. Rerolls to hit are actually really rare in this army in Cities of Sigmar. And so this is one minor way to get it.
Sure. I mean, you could just use the command ability too. That's generic, but yes, I take your meaning nonetheless. Okay. Which brings us then to our final endless spell because we have saved the best for last.
Right.
Which is the spell portal. Umbral spell portal. 70 points currently. Tom, what happens normally when you set up your portals? You pick your first one, you set it up kind of near your wizard. And then the second one has to be 18 inches away. And that's where you get to then sort of draw your line of sight from your spell, and where your endless spells can pop out from, and that kind of stuff. Tom, where does that second portal set up when it's cast by a cities wizard?
Anywhere.
Anywhere. This is the most insane empowered by. It doesn't go from like 18 to 24 inches, right? Which is what you would think if it followed the strategy of like everything else. No, 18 to just go nuts, son. Just whatever you want, man.
Yeah. 18 to go find a 50 millimeter hole in their army.
Right. Right. Like, what? This thing is crazy. Because, yes, suddenly you're spellcasting anywhere you want, right? I mean, you just, yeah.
And remember all those spells I talked about, which were like, I don't know, it's so egregious. The Knight Incantor, who has like an 18-inch bubble or a 24-inch bubble when he's on the Balewind. And it's like 1 wound everything and -1 run and charge. You could just have him emit that from your portal in the middle of their line, making everything within 24 inches of that, which is a 48-inch, 49-inch swath of the board, or 50-inch swath of the board, take 1 mortal wound and -1 to run and charge.
Sure.
Like, there's no save, there's no resisting it. Just, this is where we're at now. And if you're playing all those other movement shenanigans, you're just really pissing in their Cheerios.
Sure. Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, Portal obviously you can only put 1 spell through it, around, right?
Yeah, yeah.
But when you look at like all the potential possibilities for stuff, not only we've talked about with the Endless, but some of the spells that are in this book, like, Tom, here's a good example of a spell that might want to go through here. People have generally low-rated Anvil Guard, right?
Right.
Anvil Guard has a spell that turns a unit's save characteristic to slash. Yeah?
Yep.
Right? That's what it does. That is insane. That is an insane spell. Let me repeat what I just said. It removes their armor save. So if you have like
That's your nice Star Drake you had.
That Star Drake that was on like a 2-up save. No, he has a slash, and that's it. Like slash. Okay. All right.
Yep.
That is a very powerful spell. But it only has a 6-inch range, which is like insane because that means your caster has to be like making out with the person to get rid of their save.
Cosmic power, itty bitty living space.
Right. Or you could just put it through the portal at something you're about to light up, right? Like that you're just gonna like you get the portal out and you're about to drop down with like some Shadow Warriors or some anything that's gonna shoot or charge that unit this round. That you're about to light them up with basic bow shots, or Sisters of the Watch who aren't the greatest Ren things, but are going to put out a ton of shots, right? So you're just going to take that 3-up save unit that's relying completely on its armor to stay alive and be like, oh, portal next to you, bye save, dead.
Like, how big of an FU is this to the Star Drake? Let's just think about this, because like traditionally it has been the go-to like unkillable thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like with because of not only like a high save, but also healing on saves and re-rolling saves, and then Ignac's a scale for the mortal wound protection.
Yeah,
this is like a group of Shadow Warriors is a threat now.
Yeah, they're gonna murder you. Sister of the Watch are gonna murder you, just murder you. Like, it's bonkers, right? The fact that this just like it just zots it, and that's just one good example. I mean, that's a fun thing.
Like Hollow Heart, for example, has the Gaunt Summoner. Every model within range gets a 4-up roll, and on a 4+ they take a mortal wound. And it's like a 12-inch range.
Yeah,
but
they have the super plague like the Vermin Lord does. Yeah.
Yep, and this will let you put a portal and emit that spell from anywhere. And if your person's on a Balewind, guess what? It's an 18-inch range.
Yeah, I mean, like the portal,
Yeah.
if you're planning in this thing, you've got portal. In my mind, it's like you start with the portal and you start with the bridge, and then you figure where you're going from there.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Because these are the two that are just pulling so much weight. Um,
Yep. I
yeah,
mean, depending
yeah,
on your mobility, you don't have to have bridge, but I agree with that.
sure, sure. I think in many armies you'll end up wanting bridge just because it's like, I mean, if you look at like performance, like everybody is suddenly all about Storm Fiends. By the way, another shooting thing that's
Yep.
coming up in the meta. Everybody suddenly
Yep.
loves them, which I think you and I were talking about. Like, well, Storm Fiends are give or take, and by the way, their performance has been give or take, right? And what you've
Right.
seen is that people who had bridge and used them in
Yeah.
that way were
Yeah.
crushing with them, whereas people without
Right.
bridge found them a lot more challenging. So
Yep.
and that was only on the 12
Weird.
inch setting. Never mind the fact what we're talking about here with taking shooting units of equivalent power and then giving them that kind of 24 to 30 inch mobility, right?
Oh my god, it's so good.
Like,
Iron Drakes. Iron Drakes.
yeah, sure. So there's a lot of spells. Just like when because the 7 cities have 24 spells. Yeah, there's 24 spells in the
No.
book.
Yeah. Yep.
6
Yep.
for
Yep.
Hollow Heart and 3 for every other one, right?
Yep.
And obviously, you can't have all of them at once. You can have but there are multiple cities where you could have the whole list.
Yeah. Well, Hollow Heart, it's easy to get the whole list because not only is there an item that gives the whole list to a caster, but every wizard in Hollow Heart gets 2 spells off of the 6 spell list.
Right, right. So my point is just that like you're not going to be you're going to be spoiled for choice of stuff that you can
Yep.
you can do here, right? So
Totally.
yeah.
Cool.
There you go. So them's the endless spells. The point is this is it's a whole new world. Cue music from Aladdin. I think it really is going to
I already
change
made
the
an
meta.
Aladdin reference. I beat you to it with my itty bitty living space.
I know you
Sorry,
did.
man.
It's okay. It's all right. We can both make Aladdin references. It's fine. But I think this is going to be a different calculation. By the way, I know we focus on this mainly through a cities lens. I
Yeah.
think some of these are still highly valuable, whether you're thinking about a cities army or not. Like, for example, stuff like Palisade, I would be thinking about significantly depending on how the shooting meta sort of evolves and stuff like that. Because there's a lot of stuff that does require, like, most everything that shoots in cities now requires line of sight. Most everything.
Yep. Yep.
Not truly everything, but most everything. And that being able to both block that board space and block line of sight will end up being like pretty valuable. So there you go.
Totally.
All right. Does it trump the ethereal? Oh, Alex asked if the spell trumps the ethereal saves too. I don't know. I haven't seen the exact wording, Alex. I'd have to see the exact wording. In the shortened version that I read, it said their save value becomes
Dash.
Yep. Which I don't know if
It's
that's
not a
literally
penalty.
the text or not.
But if that is the text, remember that the ethereal just makes it so that they're unrendable, they're unmodifiable.
Correct.
You know, plus and minuses.
You can still replace the characteristic. Yes.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
If it's worded exactly like that, then yes, it will shred an ethereal unit save right off. Like, there you go. Enjoy that 4+ save. Your Grimghast Reapers. You now have a no save, and you got that 6 up after save.
Good luck.
You roll well. Both of these have some interesting. I mean, we'll talk about when we get to the orcs too, and we talk about Darkfoot or Drakfoot, whatever it's called, because there we'll talk about the other side of that equation. What it makes me want to do, Tom, is get back to do what we need is the handshake from Predator, right?
Yeah.
So like Carl Weathers and Arnie, right? Because what you need here is a team game with 1,000 points, where the one person is playing cities and they have Anvil Guard, and the other person is playing Bone Splitters or Orcs or whatever, and they have Drakfoot or whatnot, and you put these two things together, and then a unit literally cannot stop damage.
I mean, I like that. Do you know what I like better?
I'm ready. What? Hit me, man.
The team's game of Hollow Heart and Tzeentch.
Oh, sure.
Because it's like all magic. Everybody's double castering.
Sure.
You know, like battalion wise, like you could get like 8 or 10 spells out of like a Hollow Heart 1K list. Sure. Like that's not. Sure. And like Tzeentch, like you could summon so many thousand points.
Right. Oh, it's the start of battle round 2. Okay, we've got to move 18 endless spells. All right, here we go.
And you know, it'd be like, you know, you can like you could summon so much it'd feel like you're playing Slaanesh. It's just crazy.
And yes, Tristan, the bridge is much better than Lunchbox the Soul Seeker. Than Lunchbox. Yes, it is. We did mention that earlier. I think it was right before you joined. At any rate, so there you go. I am excited for this insane new world. We'll talk more about cities when we get there. We've talked a lot about it, but like the reason I really wanted to have this conversation today was because this is too big of a conversation to have in the middle of the cities review, right? Right. So when we do the cities review and get to this, we can just say, look back at this show and we'll talk about it. And this will be valuable when we talk about Tzeentch in perhaps, fingers crossed, 3 months or something when that book comes out and they're casterific casterthon, so we can go. We'll have this as a resource for people. All right.
Yep.
Cool. All right, everybody. So there you go. That's it. I know this was an early show. We still managed to get a lot of time in. Sorry about the little challenge we had at the very beginning with getting started. Sorry about the new link. I'll fix that up. But at any rate, we do thank you all for watching. Very much appreciated as always. And we'll see you next Wednesday. Bye-bye.